What is going on, family? Hope you're doing well. Andy Abramson here. It's for me, it's Friday, which is always exciting to jump on or have a Friday coming as we head into the weekend. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're had a good week, man. It's been pretty wild for us these last few weeks. North Carolina last week, 2 weeks ago, had leaders here in Austin. Some of you were here with us for our first quarterly gathering. A week before that was in Mississippi and then Minnesota. So it's been a fun June and beginning of July. So hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good summer. I know a bunch of you are on vacation right now. Last kind of, little bit before you jump into the brand new year, which is really exciting. Hey, do me a favor. If you're watching this live and want to start doing this, once you go ahead and drop in the comments #live. If you're watching a replay, you can drop in the comments #replay. It will keep this conversation at the top of the group, which would appreciate you doing that as well. Want to jump into conversation for just a few minutes today. Send out an email, upper room, lower room. And let me kind of set the stage for this conversation and this training. So I told you a couple of weeks ago, we had our first quarterly gathering, which was unbelievable. I've been just, ever since we had people come here from to Austin here for a couple of days, we spent some time working on ministry together. We did hot seats, we shared a meal together, played pickleball. Yeah, it was so much fun to be a part of. We did some pre-reading in that before that meeting on future church, and they talked about this concept of upper room, lower room. And man, some of you have heard me talk about this concept before, but I wanted to revisit with us in the room here in Austin as we began to just talk about, like, what does it look like for us as leaders to shift away from kind of the traditional things that cause people to stick in our ministries, in our churches, and invite them into something much deeper than I would say a lot of churches, a lot of ministries really struggle with. And so I want to show you this concept today. And here's what I want you to do is I want you to think about, man, just like, what does it look like for you to invite your college students, your young adults into something much deeper? And we want to talk about this idea of upper room. So here's what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen here. I got my white pen on my iPad. Let me get this set up. Do a quick screen share here. Do this. Okay, there we go. We should be good on that. There you go. You should be able to see that. Yep, we're good. So what we're going to do is I want to jump into this conversation around upper room, lower room. We're going to use the analogy of a house. And what does it look like for us to invite people into something much, much deeper? And so in the book Future Church, there are 4 things, and these are the 4 things, and I want to preface it, and these are not bad things, right? We're not saying that lower room activities, that lower room things that we provide in our ministry are necessarily bad things. But what I'm going to set up is the conversation around, if we keep them in the lower room, and don't invite them to something more, the missed opportunity that we have. And so one of the things that they talk about in the book is that there's really there's 4 primary things that draw people often into a church or into a ministry for the first time. And so you think about, often these are like entry points of that why a student or a young adult potentially would come into your ministry. And so here's what the four are. Number one is this idea of programs, right? So you think about, like, what are some of the specific programs that you have that would maybe bring somebody in. So in the college young adult sphere, that could be like a small group. It could be a midweek gathering that you have. That could be the thing that ultimately attracts somebody to come and check out your ministry, right? So maybe there's in essence where the programs are become the entry point for a person. The second one is it could be a place, right? So in place is often in the college young adult sphere, it could be like proximity. So maybe the church is close to the campus, it's close to their apartment complex, it's close to their workplace. And so maybe there's as they look at the opportunity of like, hey, there's a college young adult ministry that meets on campus, or they meet close, so I can walk there. And so place can often be the thing that draws us in, right? And some of our students and young adults in. So the next one is personality, right? And so maybe there's part of it that is, I can't talk at the same time, personality, there we go. Awesome. Spelling and talking at the same time is not exact science. So the personality is the thing that draws them in, right? So it's like maybe they identify with the staff, or you as being a preacher communicator, or the Bible study facilitator, the Sunday school teacher, like whatever, that there's a personality that ultimately that they enjoy connecting with. And this is often on a staff level. And so you can think about that there's times where maybe a college student, young adult would come to your midweek because they love the preaching, the teaching, maybe the worship leader. There's a personality that draws them. And then the last one is people. And I would say that this is probably the biggest one in the college young adult ministry space. Is it's friendships, right? So the people are the things that pull us into coming and checking out a ministry for the first time. And so these are all things that as you begin to assess your ministries, you begin to look at kind of where you're at, what you're doing, all of those things. Like these are things that interact. So you can think about a program, maybe a place, a personality, or people that draw in. But here's the thing. What we want to talk about is we want to invite people once they come into Lower Room, is really this idea to, let me see if I can do this, is to provide like a staircase to, oh, no, that's not going to work. A staircase to an upper room, right? And so here's what the upper room, ultimately the upper room starts with really this heart for loving God, loving people, that drives us to what I'm going to call a disciple making vision, right? So we're so captured by the love of God that it pushes us to love people and to ultimately see our campus, to see our apartment complex, to see our sports team as an opportunity to share that love. And ultimately, like in Matthew chapter 28, is to go and make disciples, right? And so I think the challenge is for a lot of ministries, I would say that we perhaps don't understand even having this embedded into our ministries. And so for some of your ministries, there may not be this like overflowing love of God that translates into a disciple making vision in our ministry. A lot of times what happens is that there's people don't know that there's something more. Maybe you don't know as a leader that there is something more as well. So it's really more about programs and put the programs together and the place and the personality and the people. But I think the challenge for us is, how are we going to invite people into the upper room, right? How are we going to invite them into that upper room that would capture their heart, their love for Christ, that ultimately would push them into a vision of making disciples, having an impact, in the kingdom of God expanding through them and the work that they're doing. Now, here's the challenge, and here's what we see often: is you think about, let's say, what happens. So here's the question. The question is what happens if the things in the lower room, if we never get people into the upper room, right? In the things in the lower room, the equation changes. Let's say you do new programs, or you switch locations, or the college pastor, the young adult pastor, the worship leader ended up going to a different city and taking a new position, or all of a sudden their friends move away. What happens if people are only staying in the lower room, and then all of a sudden these things don't take place anymore? What happens? These people end up leaving, right? They end up going and looking for these things someplace else. But what happens is, if we can help move people into the upper room, even if the programs, the place, the personality, the people change, what happens? There's still ultimately this disciple making vision that is birthed by this love of people, love of God, love of people, that ultimately will allow them to continue to say, man, I need to be a part of this, even though the programs might change, even though the place might change, even though the personality might change, even though the people might change. We need to begin to continue this mission, this vision that God has given me, to begin to move it forward. So here's the question for us. Right. The question for us, number one, is, do you have an upper room? Right? Do you have in your ministry, are you in the upper room? I think it'd be even a question before that question, but does our church or our ministry have an upper room? Secondly is, how do we begin to wrestle with what does it look like to invite people beyond programs, beyond place, beyond personality, beyond people, into this upper room? And here's what we see is when we can get there, man, this is where dynamic, impactful ministry happens, where we can here's where, in Austin a couple of weeks ago, really the conversation was around, I'll do a highlighter here, was around the staircase, right? And I don't have time to really go into that right now, but of saying, what is that staircase? Like, what is the staircase? Because the guys who are sitting in this room, they have upper rooms, right? They have this heart that leads into disciple making vision. But the kind of the next piece of that is like, how do we help lead people there, right? How do we help lead people up that staircase into an upper room disciple making vision that is beyond programs, place, personality, and people? So would love for you just to kind of consider that today. In your own ministry, in your own life, do you have those things embedded into your ministry? Are you leading people to an upper room of this disciple making vision? And then what are the pathways? How are you helping people lead people to that as well? So we're not getting stuck in just programs, place, personality, people, et cetera, et cetera. So wanted to drop that in the conversation today. Would love to, I'm not going to do Q&A right now, but I can circle back around. If you have any comments or questions, you can throw those down below. I'll get to them a little bit later. We're going to keep this video up for the next few days here in our group, in our public group, our private group. We'll keep it live as well, ongoing. And then for those of you who are a part of our network, this will be archived. This training will be archived. You can have access to it whenever you need it. So that will be available to you. So love for you to consider those things today, upper room, lower room. Man, hope you are doing well, and reach out. Let us know if you need anything. And if not, we will talk to you at some point down the road. Okay, we will see you later.